Hi everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I am very excited to be taking part in Scrappy Adam's celebration YouTube and Instagram hop. Originally, we were going to be celebrating Scrappy Adam's 500 subscriber milestone, but he has almost 750 as of the time that I'm recording this, and I'm sure it will go past that by the time that this is up on YouTube. So congratulations are in order for Scrappy Adam and the success of his channel. In the upper left-hand corner, you could see the layout that I'm scrap lifting. And as soon as I saw this layout, I thought that this was a perfect layout to scrap lift. I love the rosettes. I love the mixed media in the background, and I love the composition. So because there were a number of rosettes on the layout, I decided to make some rosettes. And I've made them before, but I don't know what was happening with me on this day. I was really struggling with creating rosettes. I made them the wrong size. I just made a lot of errors. So I just briefly showed you me assembling one of the rosettes, but it definitely was not my best day when it comes to rosettes, so I didn't go into detail on the sometimes disastrous process of me trying to create different sizes of rosettes. However, I have to say that in the end, the ones that I used did come out fine. In the layout, Adam had 3 photos that were cut in circles that were layered slightly on top of each other. So I'm doing the same thing in my layout. I'm using my tried and true Creative Memories circle cutters. I'm using the smallest circle. After I cut the photos, I cut out a slightly larger mat for each of them. And the collection that I'm using is the Bow Bunny Dreams of Autumn collection. And like many of the collections that I use in my layouts, this is an older collection, but I always tend to go back to it for fall because I love the color combination in this collection. So now I have the rosettes I'm going to use. I have my 3 photos that are matted, and then I also have a few embellishments, and those are fussy cut from a piece of pattern paper that was in the collection that was made for fussy cutting out images. So I picked some pumpkins, there's a pine cone, some acorns, and then a few sentiments. And now I'm arranging all of the photos the same way that Adam has his arranged, and I'm adding those rosettes in as well. And I inked the edges of all of these elements with some Tim Holtz Distress ink in Vintage Photo. Right now I'm using ATG adhesive to hold everything together, but I am going to go back in with some wet glue because I want to make sure that those rosettes stay in place. And the rosette that's on the left-hand side of the cluster, that is a little bit smaller than the rosette that Adam used. I kept attempting to make a rosette that was the same size as on the layout, but I kept making it either too big or too small. So I finally decided that I was just going to go with the size that I made, and you could see that I put a little sentiment that says fall to the right of it, and that fills in a little gap that was made when I put the rosette there. So I really love this fox. There was a small version and a large version. Unfortunately, the fox is looking to the left, and I just feel that that makes the eye go off the page. And then the other fox is looking to the right, but that one was just too big. So I don't end up using the fox, even though I really liked it a lot. In addition to the Bow Bunny collection, I also use some other embellishments. I have some Simple Stories sweater weather brads, and I chose some of those. Right now, I am putting some freckled fawn wooden buttons on the layout, but those don't end up staying there. And I also had a pack of die cuts with a view fall theme stickers, so I used some of those. The title that's on the lower left-hand corner that says Autumn Days, that's from that set. And I also use some epoxy stickers from that set on the layout. I begin working on the cluster in the lower left-hand corner. You could see that I tried both of those foxes that I had, but it just didn't work for this layout. And now I'm inking the edges of some leaves that were fussy cut from some of the papers in the collection. And they're such colorful leaves. I love these. I wish I had more of this collection. These are the last of the leaves that are in the collection, and I think they are such a great embellishment to mix in to the layout. Here I'm trying to decide which of these leaves would look best in the cluster, and then the rest of the leaves that I don't use in the smaller cluster, I tuck into a few places on the larger cluster. The photos in this layout are of both of my daughters, and this is Thanksgiving Day several years ago, and it was one of those mild November days, so we're taking some photos outside, and we always try to get a Christmas photo from the pictures we take on Thanksgiving Day, and sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. I don't think we ended up using any of these photos for our Christmas card, but we did get some nice photos to Scrapbook, of course. As I'm making these clusters, I'm not attaching anything down to the background. My plan is to add some mixed media to the background, the same way that Adam did. So I'm just attaching everything together, but not to the background. I continue to work on that smaller cluster. It's not as small as it was before. I'm layering a number of the images from the collection, and now I'm adding a little banner. I wanted to add this underneath the entire cluster. I just felt like I wanted a straight piece of paper underneath it. So I'm inking the edges, and I'm going to attach that down. Again, putting the glue on the top of the banner so that I could stick it behind the cluster and not stick it to the background. There were some flowers that were already part of the sticker, and I wanted to move them slightly, so I carefully pulled them up and I just slightly repositioned them. I wanted to move them down so that they would slightly overlap the banner underneath it. I'm adding some epoxy pieces from that Die Cuts with a View sticker pack, and I'm attaching down some of the acorns and some of the leaves that I put in place but forgot to glue down. Once I have all of the embellishments attached to the cluster, I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to put a pencil line behind where the cluster is. I'm not worried about the pencil line being perfect. I just want to give myself a guide as to where the mixed media should go, and I want to make sure that the pencil line is behind the cluster because I don't want it to show once I add the mixed media. And then I do the exact same thing for the small cluster. As I was adding the sprays, I was thinking that I wanted to have mixed media in the background, but I didn't want to make the background too busy. So I was thinking that I would just add some yellow spray. I'm adding 2 yellow sprays. I'm using Lindy's Starburst spray in Yellow Rose of Texas. And then I also use a Prima Color Bloom 2 spray in Spring Dandelion. You can see that having the clusters as a separate unit comes in really handy because I can trial the clusters and see if I have enough mixed media and if I should add a little bit more or if I should remove some of it. Since I want there to be depth to the color, I add several layers and I dry the color in between with a heat tool. And if my paper gets very warped, I use a little tip that I got from a Paige Evans video. I will just put it through my laminator once or twice and that will flatten it back out again. I started with the Lindy's Yellow Rose of Texas spray, and now I'm going back in with the Color Bloom spray in Spring Dandelion, and it's a slightly different color yellow, so I like the way that adds a different tone to the background. Then when the background was dry, I sprinkled some water on it, and then I roll the paper towel, and that lifts up some of the color, and it makes an effect that I absolutely love, and I do it all the time on my backgrounds, as long as your background is gessoed, and I do have gesso on my background, and the paper is just a really heavyweight paper. It's 120 pounds, and it's a smooth white cardstock, and I keep a pile of gessoed paper so I can just start creating whenever I feel inspired. I add some splatters to the background as well, and I place the small cluster on top of the mixed media. I just wanted to see if I liked the way it looked. I was happy with the amount of yellow that was showing behind that smaller cluster. I saw that on Adam's layout, he had it seemed to me, some stencil work on the background, and so I'm using some Distress Oxides and an Echo Park stencil, and I am adding some leaves to the background. Right now I'm adding some Distress Oxide in Spiced Marmalade. Initially I was thinking that I wanted to add some leaves, but I didn't want a lot of color in the background, or color that was very different from what I already had there. So I was sticking with a color that was close to the color of the sprays. As I continued to work though, I decided that I wanted to add another color to the background. So I add the Spiced Marmalade to both of the clusters, the large one and the small one, and then I decided that I wanted to add some green as well. And the green that I use is also a Distress Oxide, and this one is called Mowed Lawn. And you'll see in the final layout that I don't add as much of the green, or not as much of the green ends up showing as the yellow. I just wanted there to be some touches of the green, but I didn't want to overshadow the yellow with the green. So I'm just going around to all the different areas where I added the yellow, and I'm adding some of the green leaves. And of course I want the background behind the small cluster and the large cluster to coordinate, so I add some green to the smaller cluster as well. And at first I put the green too far in and it wasn't at all visible with the cluster on top of it, so I added a little bit more. Once I was all done with adding the leaves to the background, I got some of my watered down white acrylic paint and I began splattering that all over the areas that have the mixed media on them. I love the way the white splatters look. Sometimes when they dry, they are only faintly visible, but I really like that touch, and I think that the white splatters help to bring all the mixed media together. Sometimes if the white splatters are very big, it can take the white paint a while to dry, so I have to be patient and let it dry, or sometimes I just use my heat tool. I added just a few more green leaves to the right-hand side of the layout, and now I'm putting some adhesive on the back of the large cluster and attaching it down. Now I'm going to be attaching the smaller cluster down as well. And I wanted to ink that pumpkin a little bit more so that it would contrast with the background. And I'm sorry that it's slightly off camera, but you'll see it in a moment. I'm attaching down some banners that were part of the cut apart sheet. After I looked at the layout for a little while, I was thinking that I wanted to have some darker colored splatters in the background. And I didn't want to use black, so I decided that I was going to use some dark brown because it matched the pattern paper collection much better. The color is a Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist called Old World Brown. I use a wipe to clean up the background a little bit, and then I attach down that brad to the center of one of the rosettes, and that completes this layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed scrap lifting, one of Scrappy Adam's beautiful layouts, and I want to wish him continued success with his YouTube channel. There are lots of very talented scrapbookers that are playing along with this hop, and you will find links to all of their videos in the description box. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.